He didn't plan to make headlines. Marcus Keller, a reserved single father and former Marine, was simply taking his daughter to the Westbridge Innovation Summit to collect donated school supplies from the community outreach program. But when he witnessed a security guard violently corner a woman at the entrance of the city's most prestigious tech campus, he stepped forward without hesitation, not knowing she was Delilah Fox, the billionaire CEO of the very company hosting the event, and that his actions would ignite a movement that would transform corporate accountability forever. What unfolded in the minutes and days that followed would expose a toxic culture of power, challenge the very foundation of privilege, and bind 4 lives together in ways none of them could have imagined. The truth would emerge not in boardrooms or press conferences, but on the steps of a plaza where assumptions shattered and courage found its voice. Before we jump back in, tell us where you're tuning in from, and if this story touches you, make sure you're subscribed, because tomorrow, I've saved something extra special for you. The autumn air carried the scent of possibility through the streets of Ashford Heights, a city where innovation towers pierced the skyline like monuments to ambition. Marcus Keller walked steadily along the polished sidewalk, his weathered leather jacket draped over broad shoulders that still carried the posture of his years in service. The jacket had seen better days, its brown surface cracked and faded, but it fit him like a second skin, a reminder of who he had been and who he was still becoming. Beside him, his daughter Lily bounded along with the kind of energy that only a 9-year-old possesses. Her purple backpack bounced against her shoulders as she clutched a small notebook covered in stickers of stars and rockets. Her sneakers, slightly scuffed but clean, tapped against the concrete in an irregular rhythm that Marcus had long ago learned was the soundtrack of her thoughts processing the world around her. "Dad, are you sure they said we could just walk in and get the supplies?" Lily asked, her voice carrying that mixture of excitement and uncertainty that always made Marcus smile. "Yes, sweetheart. The email said all families from the district are welcome at the community tent between 9 and 11. We're right on time." He glanced down at her, noting how her curly brown hair caught the morning light. She looked more like her mother every day, and the thought brought both warmth and a familiar ache to his chest. Lily adjusted her glasses and peered ahead at the massive glass structure looming before them. The Foxtech Innovation Campus was unlike anything else in Ashford Heights. 4 interconnected towers of steel and glass rose from a landscaped plaza, their surfaces reflecting the clouds like mirrors to the sky. Water features flanked the main entrance, and perfectly manicured trees lined the walkways. Everything about the place whispered wealth, power, and exclusivity. "It's so big," Lily whispered, her enthusiasm dimming slightly as she took in the grandeur. "Do you think people like us are really supposed to go in there?" Marcus stopped walking and knelt down to meet her eyes. His hand rested gently on her shoulder, and when he spoke, his voice carried the same steady calm that had once guided soldiers through uncertainty. "People like us belong anywhere truth and dignity matter. Don't let buildings or money make you feel small. You're every bit as valuable as anyone who walks through those doors." Lily studied his face, her young mind absorbing not just his words but the conviction behind them. She nodded slowly, then broke into a smile. "Okay, Dad, let's go get those supplies." They approached the main plaza where a large white tent had been erected near the east entrance. Banners proclaimed Foxtech Cares, Community Education Initiative in bold letters, and tables were visible inside, staffed by volunteers in matching blue shirts. A modest crowd of families moved in and out, carrying bags of notebooks, pencils, and learning materials. Marcus guided Lily toward the tent, his eyes scanning the environment out of habit. The plaza was busy but organized. Corporate employees in sleek business attire moved purposefully toward the main entrances. Security personnel in crisp uniforms stood at intervals, their presence subtle but noticeable. Everything felt controlled, curated, perfect. "Stay close," Marcus said softly, his hand resting on Lily's shoulder as they approached the tent. But then something shifted. Sharp voice cut through the pleasant morning atmosphere like a blade. "I said you need to leave, now." Marcus's attention snapped toward the sound. 30 feet away, near the entrance to the North Tower, a security guard stood blocking a woman's path. The guard was tall, thick-shouldered, with the kind of aggressive stance that Marcus recognized immediately. His name tag read Newman, and his hand rested near the radio clipped to his belt. The woman he was confronting looked to be in her mid-40s, dressed in jeans, a plain gray hoodie, and worn sneakers. Her dark hair was pulled back in a simple ponytail, and she carried a canvas tote bag over one shoulder. She didn't look like the typical corporate executives flowing past her, and that seemed to be precisely the problem. "I have every right to be here," the woman said, her voice steady but strained. "I'm attending the summit. You don't have a badge. You're not on the list. And you don't belong here," Newman replied, his tone dripping with contempt. "This is private property. Leave before I make you leave." Marcus felt Lily's hand tighten around his. She had stopped walking, her eyes fixed on the confrontation. Other people in the plaza were beginning to notice too. The most hurried past, eyes averted, unwilling to get involved. "I left my badge in my office," the woman explained, reaching into her bag. "If you just let me access the building, I can show you my credentials." "Sure you did," Newman sneered. He stepped closer, invading her space. "Let me guess, you're here to steal something? People like you think you can just wander onto a campus like this?" The woman's jaw tightened. "People like me?" "Yeah, people who don't belong." Marcus saw it then, the slight tremor in the woman's hands, not from fear but from restrained anger. She was holding herself together, but barely. And Newman was escalating, feeding off his own authority. Lily tugged on Marcus's jacket. "Dad, that man is being mean. I know, honey. Are you going to do something?" Marcus looked down at his daughter. Her eyes were wide, searching his face for an answer, for guidance on what to do when the world showed its ugliness. This was one of those moments he had hoped to shield her from a little longer, but life didn't ask permission. He thought of all the times he'd told her to stand up for what was right. All the stories he'd shared about courage, not being the absence of fear, but acting despite it. He thought of her mother, who had taught both of them that silence in the face of injustice was its own kind of betrayal. "Yes," Marcus said quietly. "I am." He knelt down quickly. "Lily, I need you to stay right here by this bench. Don't move. Can you do that for me?" She nodded, her expression serious. "Be careful, Daddy, always." Marcus straightened and began walking toward the confrontation. His pace was measured, deliberate, the way he had learned to move when entering uncertain situations. Not aggressive, but absolutely certain. As he closed the distance, he could hear Newman's voice rising. "You need to leave right now, or I'm calling the police and having you arrested for trespassing." The woman stood her ground. "I'm not trespassing. I work here." "Sure you do," Newman laughed bitterly. He reached out and grabbed her arm. "Come on. Let's go." That's when Marcus's voice cut through the tension, calm and immovable as stone. "Let her go." Newman's head snapped around, his eyes narrowing as he took in Marcus. The security guard released the woman's arm, but didn't step back. Instead, he puffed up, his chest expanding as he sized up this new threat. "This doesn't concern you. Keep moving." Marcus stopped 3 feet away, his stance relaxed but ready. His voice remained calm, almost conversational. "She said she works here. She's not causing a disturbance. There's no reason to put your hands on her." "I'm doing my job," Newman shot back. "And you're interfering with security operations. Back off before you're removed too." The woman looked at Marcus, surprise and something like gratitude flashing across her face. Up close, Marcus could see the intelligence in her eyes. the dignity in how she held herself despite the humiliation of the moment. "I appreciate this," she said quietly to Marcus. "But you don't have to get involved." Marcus kept his eyes on Newman. "Yes, I do. My daughter is watching." The plaza seemed to hold its breath. What had been background noise, the chatter of families, the hum of the water features, the distant traffic, all of it faded into a tense silence that wrapped around the four people standing in this invisible arena. Newman's face flushed red. His jaw clenched, and Marcus could see the calculation happening behind his eyes. Here was a man accustomed to being obeyed without question, and now his authority was being challenged in public. "Who do you think you are?" Newman demanded, taking a step closer to Marcus. "Some kind of hero?" "Just someone who recognizes when a situation is wrong," Marcus replied evenly. His tone carried no aggression, but there was steel underneath. "She's cooperating. She's explaining her situation. You're escalating for no reason. You're escalating for no reason." A small crowd had begun to form now. Corporate employees slowed their pace, phones emerging from pockets. A few volunteers from the community tent had stepped out to watch. Lily remained by the bench, exactly where Marcus had told her to stay. But her eyes never left her father. Preparing and narrating this story took us a lot of time, so if you are enjoying it, subscribe to our channel, it means a lot to us. Now back to the story. Newman glanced around, seeming to realize for the first time that he had an audience. Rather than de-escalating, he doubled down. "This woman is trespassing. I have every right to remove her from the premises." "By force?" Marcus asked. "Without verifying her story? Without calling a supervisor?" "I don't need to verify anything," Newman snapped. "Look at her. Does she look like she belongs in a place like this?" The words hung in the air, ugly and revealing. The woman in the hoodie stiffened, her hands curling into fists at her sides. Marcus saw the hurt flash across her face before she schooled her expression back to neutrality. But it was there. The wound of being judged, dismissed, and dehumanized based on appearance alone. Marcus took a slow breath. "What she looks like has nothing to do with whether she belongs here. You're making assumptions based on bias, not facts." "Bias?" Newman laughed harshly. "I'm doing my job. Foxtech has strict security protocols. We don't let random people wander around without credentials." "Then verify credentials," Marcus said simply. "Don't make judgments based on clothing." Newman's hand moved to his radio. "I'm calling for backup. You're both being removed from the property." Before he could press the button, the woman spoke, her voice cutting through with unexpected authority. "I wouldn't do that if I were you." Newman paused, his finger hovering over the radio. "Oh yeah, why's that?" The woman straightened, pulling her shoulders back. Something shifted in her demeanor, a quiet confidence emerging from beneath the exhaustion and frustration. "Because when your supervisor arrives, you're going to have to explain why you physically grabbed and threatened to arrest someone without following proper identification protocol." "I don't have to explain anything to you." Newman spat. "No," the woman agreed. "But you'll have to explain it to someone." Marcus watched the exchange, sensing there was more to this woman than her appearance suggested. The way she spoke, the certainty in her voice. It reminded him of officers he'd served under. People who knew exactly who they were and what they were capable of. Newman seemed to sense it too, because his aggression faltered for just a moment. But pride wouldn't let him back down. "You're both leaving, now." "No," Marcus said quietly. "We're not." That's when everything exploded. Newman lunged forward, reaching for the woman's bag. "Let me see what you're hiding in there." The woman pulled back, trying to keep her belongings from his grasp. "You have no right to search my property without cause." "I have every right," Newman growled, yanking the bag hard enough that the woman stumbled forward. That's when Marcus moved. It wasn't dramatic. It wasn't violent, but it was absolute. Marcus stepped between them, his hand catching Newman's wrist in a firm grip that stopped the security guard's momentum completely. His voice, when he spoke, carried the weight of command that came from years of leading people through life-and-death situations. "Get out, now." The words were directed at Newman, but they carried across the plaza. Several people gasped. Phones rose higher, recording. Somewhere in the crowd, someone whispered, "Is that guy crazy?" "That's Fox Deck security." Newman tried to pull his wrist free, but Marcus's grip was immovable. Not painful, not aggressive, just completely firm. "Let go of me," Newman hissed. "Step back," Marcus said calmly. "Take 3 steps back, collect yourself, and we'll talk about this like professionals. I don't take orders from you. I'm not giving orders. I'm giving you a chance to de-escalate before this gets worse for everyone involved." For a moment, it seemed like Newman might actually comply. His eyes darted around at the growing crowd, at the phone's recording, at the woman standing behind Marcus with her arms wrapped protectively around her bag. Then pride and anger won. "You just assaulted a security officer," Newman said, his voice rising to make sure everyone heard. "That's a crime. You're both under arrest." He pulled his radio up. "This is Newman at North Plaza. I need immediate backup and police presence. I have 2 trespassers, one of whom just assaulted me." Marcus released Newman's wrist and took a deliberate step back, his hands visible at his sides. "I didn't assault anyone. I stopped you from taking someone's property without legal authority." "That's not what the cameras will show," Newman said with a smirk. But the woman stepped forward then, her voice carrying a new edge. "Actually, that's exactly what the cameras will show. Along with you grabbing my arm, making discriminatory comments, and failing to follow your own company's verification procedures." Newman's smirk faltered. "Who the hell do you think you are?" Before she could answer, the sound of fast-approaching footsteps drew everyone's attention. 3 more security officers were jogging across the plaza, along with a woman in an expensive navy suit who moved with the urgency of someone in authority. Behind them, 2 uniformed police officers followed at a more measured pace. The woman in the suit arrived first, slightly breathless. Her eyes swept across the scene. Newman standing aggressive and defensive, Marcus calm and watchful. The woman in the hoodie standing between them. And a crowd of at least 30 people watching with phones raised. "What is going on here?" the suit woman demanded, her voice sharp with the kind of stress that came from managing corporate crises. Newman jumped in immediately. "Director Chun, I apprehended 2 trespassers. This man assaulted me when I tried to escort them off the property." Director Chun's eyes narrowed. "Trespassers? During our community outreach event? They don't have badges. They refuse to leave when ordered." Chun looked at Marcus. "Sir, do you have identification showing you're part of our community program?" Marcus reached slowly into his jacket pocket, producing his phone. "I have the email invitation here. My daughter and I came for the education supply distribution." "Your daughter?" Chun looked around and spotted Lily still standing by the bench, watching everything with wide eyes. Chun's expression softened slightly. "And where is she now?" "I told her to stay there when this situation started," Marcus said. "I didn't want her in the middle of a confrontation." Chun turned to the woman in the hoodie. "And you?" The woman took a breath, and Marcus could see her making a decision. She reached into her bag, not the canvas tote but an interior pocket, and pulled out a slim leather wallet. From it, she produced a card and held it up. It was a corporate ID badge. But not just any badge. This one had a holographic security strip and golden text that read, "Executive Level Unrestricted Access." The name on the badge read, Delilah Fox, Chief Executive Officer, Fox Deck Industries. The plaza went silent. Director Chun's face drained of color. Newman's mouth fell open. and Marcus felt a jolt of shock run through him as he realized exactly who he had been defending. Delilah Fox, the billionaire CEO, the face of one of the world's most powerful technology companies, had been standing in a hoodie and jeans being harassed by her own security guard. The silence stretched like a rubber band pulled to its breaking point. Every eye in the plaza was locked on the ID badge, still held aloft in Delilah Fox's steady hand. The holographic strip caught the morning sunlight, casting tiny rainbows across the faces of those standing closest. Director Chun recovered first, her professional instincts kicking in despite the obvious shock flooding her system. She stepped forward quickly, her voice dropping to an urgent whisper. "Ms. Fox, I had no idea you were on campus today. Your schedule didn't indicate anything." Delilah finally lowered the badge, her expression unreadable. "That's because I don't report my movements to anyone when I'm conducting personal assessments of our operations." Her eyes shifted to Newman, who looked like he wanted the polished concrete beneath his feet to open up and swallow him whole. "And it's fortunate I don't, given what I just experienced." Newman's face had gone from red to pale in a matter of seconds. His mouth opened and closed, but no words emerged. The other security officers who had rushed to the scene now stood frozen, uncertain whether to intervene or disappear. Marcus watched the scene unfold with a strange sense of detachment. Part of him was still processing the revelation, still recalibrating everything he'd witnessed through this new lens. But another part of him, the part shaped by years of military service and moral clarity, remained unmoved. Wrong was wrong, regardless of who the victim turned out to be. "Ms. Fox," Chun began again, her voice taking on the smooth, damage control tone of a seasoned corporate diplomat. "I'm certain this is all a terrible misunderstanding. Officer Newman was simply following security protocols designed to keep you and all our employees safe. Was he?" Delilah's voice was quiet, but it cut through the plaza like a knife through silk. "Let's review those protocols, shall we?" She turned to address not just Chun and Newman, but the entire crowd that had gathered. Marcus noticed more people streaming out of the buildings now, drawn by the commotion or perhaps alerted by messages from those already recording. According to Foxtech security standards, Section 4, any individual stopped for identification purposes must first be asked to verbally identify themselves and state their business on campus. "Was I asked that, Officer Newman?" Newman's jaw worked, but Chun jumped in quickly. "Ms. Fox, perhaps we should discuss this privately in my office where we can review the full context and ensure proper procedure moving forward." "Answer the question," Delilah said, her eyes never leaving Newman. "Did you ask me to identify myself?" "I asked if you had a badge," Newman managed, his voice hoarse. "That's not what the protocol says." "Did you ask who I was and why I was here?" A pause. "No. And when I explained that I'd left my badge in my office and could easily verify my identity once inside, what did you do?" Newman looked at his feet. Delilah continued, her voice growing stronger. "You told me I didn't belong. You said people like me shouldn't be on this campus. You grabbed my arm and threatened to have me arrested, all without following a single verification step outlined in your own training manual." Marcus saw a flash of something raw cross Delilah's face, not anger, vulnerability. This wasn't just about protocol violations. This was personal. How many times, he wondered, had she been judged, dismissed, or challenged based on nothing more than appearance or assumption? How many times had wealth and position shielded her from the full weight of that bias, until today, when she deliberately stripped away those shields to see how her own company operated? Director Chun looked like she was scrambling for a lifeline. "Officer Newman will be placed on immediate administrative leave, pending a full investigation. I assure you, Ms. Fox, that this incident will be handled with the utmost seriousness and appropriate measures will be taken to ensure it never happens again. Will it?" Delilah asked. She turned slowly, her gaze sweeping across the assembled security officers. The corporate employees watching from the building entrances. The families who had come for school supplies and gotten far more than they bargained for. Because I suspect this isn't the first time Officer Newman has made assumptions about who belongs in our spaces and who doesn't. I suspect this isn't even the first time this week. Her eyes found Marcus then, really looking at him for the first time since the revelation. This man, a complete stranger, saw what was happening and chose to intervene. He put himself at risk, put his relationship with this company at risk, because he recognized an injustice. He didn't know who I was. It didn't matter to him. What mattered was that someone was being mistreated, and his daughter was watching. Marcus felt the weight of dozens of eyes turning toward him. He remained still, uncomfortable with the attention, but unwilling to shrink from it. Beside the bench, Lily stood on her tiptoes, trying to see through the crowd. Delilah took a step toward Marcus, her expression softening. "I need to thank you, Mr. Keller. Marcus Keller. Mr. Keller, you didn't have to do what you did. Most people wouldn't have. They would have walked by, told themselves it wasn't their business, convinced themselves that there must be some good reason for what they were seeing. But you didn't. My daughter was watching," Marcus said simply, echoing his earlier words. "I couldn't teach her to stand up for what's right, and then walk past someone being treated unfairly." Something flickered in Delilah's eyes, recognition perhaps, or respect. "Your daughter is very fortunate. I'm fortunate to have her." One of the police officers, who had been standing quietly observing, stepped forward now. His name tag read Officer Harrison, and unlike Newman, his demeanor was professional and measured. "Miss Fox, do you wish to press charges against Officer Newman for assault?" The question hung in the air. Everyone waited. Newman looked like he might be sick. Delilah was quiet for a long moment. Marcus could see her weighing options, considering consequences, calculating what justice looked like in this moment. Finally, she shook her head. "No, I don't want to press charges." Relief washed visibly across Newman's face. But Delilah wasn't finished. "However, I do want a full internal investigation into Officer Newman's conduct, his history with this company, and any previous complaints or incidents that may have been dismissed or overlooked. I want every member of our security team retrained on proper identification protocols and implicit bias. And I want a comprehensive review of our campus culture to understand how we created and co-created, and cults in Gwendis culture to understand how we created environment where an employee felt empowered to treat another human being the way I was treated this morning." She turned back to Director Chun. "This meeting will happen today. My office, 2 hours. I want you, the head of security, the head of HR, and our legal counsel present. This is not a request." Chun nodded rapidly. "Of course, Ms. Fox, we'll make it happen." Delilah looked at Newman one more time. "You're suspended, effective immediately. You'll surrender your badge and radio to Director Chun and leave the campus. Whether you ever return will depend on what the investigation reveals and whether you're willing to acknowledge what you did and why it was wrong." Newman's hands shook as he unclipped his badge and radio, handing them to Chun without meeting anyone's eyes. The other security officer stood aside as he walked away, his shoulders hunched, his swagger completely gone. The crowd began to disperse slowly, people returning to their days but carrying this story with them. Marcus knew that by evening, this would be all over social media, dissected and debated, turned into headlines and hot takes. But right now, in this moment, it was just people trying to figure out what came next. Marcus turned to head back to Lily, eager to get her away from the chaos and explain what had happened in terms a 9-year-old could process. But Delilah's voice stopped him. "Mr. Keller, wait." He turned back. Delilah had pulled her hood back now, her dark hair falling loose around her shoulders. She looked both exhausted and energized, like someone who had just survived something difficult but necessary. I'd like to speak with you further if you have time. Not about what happened, or at least not only about that. I want to hear your perspective on some things. And I'd like to meet your daughter properly." Marcus hesitated. "Miss Fox, we just came for school supplies. I'm not looking for any attention or recognition from this." "I know," Delilah said. "That's exactly why I want to talk to you." Before Marcus could respond, Lily appeared at his side, having apparently decided that enough time had passed, and she needed to check on her father. She looked up at Delilah with open curiosity, no fear, just the straightforward assessment that young people bring to every new person they meet. "Are you okay?" Lily asked Delilah. "That man was being really mean to you." Delilah crouched down, bringing herself to Lily's eye level. "I am okay now. Thanks in part to your dad." "You must be very proud of him." Lily nodded seriously. "I am. He's always doing the right thing, even when it's hard." "That's a rare quality," Delilah said softly. She looked up at Marcus. "Please, just coffee." 30 minutes. "There's a cafe on the second floor of the main building. Let me at least thank you properly and get your perspective on something." Marcus looked down at Lily, who shrugged in that way that meant she was leaving the decision to him. He thought about all the reasons to say no, to take their supplies and go home, to return to their quiet life and let this extraordinary morning fade into just another story they'd tell someday. But something in Delilah's expression stopped him. This wasn't a powerful CEO trying to manage a situation or buy someone's silence. This was a person shaken and thoughtful, genuinely asking for a moment of human connection. "Okay," Marcus said finally. 30 minutes. Delilah's smile was small but genuine. "Thank you. Give me 10 minutes to change into something more professional and meet me at the North Tower elevator bank." "And Mr. Keller?" "Yes?" "Thank you again for seeing me as a person who needed help rather than an obstacle or a situation to avoid. That means more than you know." As she walked away, flanked by Director Chun and the remaining security personnel, Marcus felt Lily tug on his jacket. "Dad, is she really super rich and important?" "Apparently, but you didn't know that when you helped her." "No, I didn't." Lily thought about that for a moment. "That's good, right? That you helped her because it was right, not because she was important." Marcus pulled his daughter close, pressing a kiss to the top of her head. "Yeah, sweetheart. That's exactly right." They stood together in the plaza as the morning continued around them. Two ordinary people who had stumbled into an extraordinary moment, with no idea that this was just the beginning of something far larger than either of them could have imagined. The second floor of the North Tower was a study in modern corporate elegance. Floor-to-ceiling windows offered panoramic views of Ashford Heights, while the interior featured minimalist furniture in shades of white and chrome. The Café Delilah had mentioned occupied a corner space, separated from the main corridor by frosted glass panels etched with geometric patterns. Marcus and Lily arrived at the elevator bank exactly 10 minutes after Delilah had left the plaza. Marcus had used those minutes to collect the school supplies they had originally come for. 2 bags full of notebooks, pencils, and art materials that now sat at their feet as they waited. When the elevator doors opened, Delilah emerged transformed. Gone was the hoodie and jeans. Now she wore tailored black slacks, a crisp white blouse, and a charcoal blazer that probably cost more than Marcus made in a month. Her hair was pulled back in a sleek ponytail, and small diamond earrings caught the light. She looked every inch the billionaire CEO. Yet something in her eyes remained the same. That mixture of weariness and determination he'd seen on the plaza. "Thank you for coming," Delilah said, offering a genuine smile. She gestured toward the cafe. "Shall we?" The cafe was nearly empty, most employees apparently still tied up in meetings or buried in work. A barista looked up as they entered, his eyes widening slightly in recognition of Delilah before he quickly schooled his expression to professional neutrality. "What would you like?" Delilah asked as they approached the counter. "Just black coffee for me," Marcus said. "And maybe a hot chocolate for Lily?" Lily nodded enthusiastically. "With whipped cream?" Delilah smiled. "With extra whipped cream." She turned to the barista. "One black coffee, one hot chocolate with extra whipped cream, and I'll have a green tea, please." They settled into a corner booth, Lily sliding in beside her father while Delilah sat across from them. For a moment, no one spoke. It was an unusual situation, and everyone seemed to recognize it. Finally, Delilah broke the silence. "I need to start by explaining something," she said, her hands wrapped around her teacup. "What happened this morning wasn't an accident or a surprise. It was a test." Marcus's eyes narrowed slightly. "A test?" Delilah nodded. "For the past 6 months, I've been receiving complaints from community members, vendors, and even some employees about how our security team treats people who don't fit a certain profile. Complaints about aggressive questioning, unnecessary searches, people being turned away from public events we host. Every time I raised the issue with my security director, I was told these were isolated incidents, misunderstandings, or necessary precautions." She paused, taking a sip of her tea. Lily watched her with rapt attention, her hot chocolate temporarily forgotten. 3 weeks ago, a veteran came to our campus for a job fair we were hosting. He has PTSD and sometimes struggles in crowded environments. When he tried to explain this to security, they became aggressive. They accused him of being intoxicated or high. They physically escorted him off campus, and in the process, he had a panic attack. By the time I heard about it, he'd already decided not to pursue legal action because he didn't think anyone would believe him over a multi-billion-dollar company's security team. Marcus felt something cold settle in his stomach. "How did you find out?" "His wife sent me an email. It sat in my general inbox for 2 weeks before someone on my team flagged it as important. When I finally read it and investigated, I found that there had been 17 similar complaints in the past year alone. 17. And not one had made it to my attention through official channels. They were being buried," Marcus said quietly. "Systematically. My head of security was filtering them out, marking them as resolved or unfounded. Sometimes offering small settlements with non-disclosure agreements to make them go away quietly." Lily looked up at her father, confusion on her face. "Dad, what does that mean?" Marcus chose his words carefully. "It means that when people complained about being treated badly, the company paid them money to stay quiet about it instead of fixing the problem." "That's not fair," Lily said. "No," Delilah agreed, looking directly at the young girl. "It's not fair at all. And it's not the kind of company I want to lead." She turned back to Marcus. "So I decided to conduct my own test. I've been coming to campus periodically over the past 2 weeks, dressed casually, no badge visible, approaching security at different entrances to see how I'd be treated. Some guards were professional. They asked questions, verified information, followed protocol. But others, like Newman, revealed something much uglier." Marcus sat back, processing this. "You were gathering evidence. I was experiencing what dozens of people had tried to tell me was happening. I needed to understand it firsthand, not through reports or filtered accounts." She looked down at her hands. "I've built this company from nothing. I started Foxtech in a garage 20 years ago with a laptop and an idea. I faced discrimination, dismissal, and doubt every step of the way. I thought creating a successful company would mean creating a place where that didn't happen to others. Finding out I failed at that has been devastating." The vulnerability in her voice was startling. This wasn't a CEO managing her image or spinning a narrative. This was someone genuinely grappling with a painful truth about something she built. "What happens now?" Marcus asked. Delilah's expression hardened with resolve. Now we fix it. Really fix it. Not with policy memos and training videos that people click through without thinking. I'm talking about a complete overhaul of how we approach security, accessibility, and inclusion on every campus we operate. She leaned forward, her intensity growing. But here's where I need your perspective, Mr. Keller. You intervened this morning. You saw something wrong, and you acted. In my experience, most people don't. They look away, they rationalize, they convince themselves it's not their problem, or that surely someone else will handle it. What made you different? Marcus was quiet for a moment, aware of Lily listening beside him. He thought about how to answer honestly without making it about himself. I grew up in a neighborhood where looking away was survival, he began slowly. You minded your business, you didn't get involved in other people's problems, you protected your own. For a long time, I thought that was wisdom. Then I served overseas, and I saw what happens when good people convince themselves that injustice isn't their responsibility. I saw villages where everyone knew terrible things were happening, but no one wanted to be the first to speak up, to act, to risk themselves. He paused, glancing at Lily before continuing. When my wife got sick, our community showed up. People we barely knew brought meals, helped with Lily, sat with us in hospital waiting rooms. They didn't look away from our pain, they walked toward it. After she passed, I realized I had a choice about what kind of man I wanted to be, what kind of example I wanted to set. Lily reached over and squeezed his hand. This morning, I watched a security guard abuse his authority against someone who was being nothing but calm and respectful. I watched him make assumptions based on appearance. And I knew my daughter was watching me to see what I would do. That's not a choice at all, really. That's just being the person I need to be. Delilah was quiet for a long moment, her eyes glistening slightly. Your wife sounds like she was remarkable. She was. And she'd be proud of you. Marcus smiled faintly. I hope so. Delilah took a breath, seeming to come to a decision. Mr. Keller, I have a proposition for you. I'm creating an independent advisory board to oversee our security practices and corporate culture initiatives. I need people on that board who have actual moral courage, not just credentials and connections. People who will tell me the truth, even when it's uncomfortable. Would you consider joining? Marcus blinked, surprised. Ms. Fox, I'm not a corporate consultant or a security expert. I work part-time at a community center and do maintenance work. I don't have the background for something like that. You have exactly the background I need. You have integrity. You have perspective. You have the courage to act when others won't. She pulled out a business card and slid it across the table. I'm not asking for an answer right now. Think about it. The board would meet quarterly, and members would be compensated for their time. But more importantly, you'd have the opportunity to help shape how a major corporation treats people. All people who interact with it. Marcus picked up the card, turning it over in his hands. Part of him wanted to decline immediately, to return to the simplicity of his normal life. But another part, the part that had stepped forward on the plaza that morning, recognized an opportunity to turn one moment of courage into something lasting. I'll think about it, he said finally. That's all I ask. Delilah checked her watch and sighed. I have that meeting with my executive team in 20 minutes. I need to go play CEO and make some people very uncomfortable. She stood, then paused, looking at Lily. You know what I think? I think you're going to grow up to be someone who makes the world better, just like your dad. Lily smiled shyly. I hope so. As Delilah walked away, Marcus and Lily sat in the quiet cafe, the weight of the morning settling around them. Lily took a long sip of her now lukewarm hot chocolate, then looked up at her father. Dad, are you going to help her? I don't know yet, sweetheart. It's complicated. Mom used to say that complicated just means you have to think harder about what's right. Marcus felt his throat tighten. His daughter had absorbed more of her mother's wisdom than he'd realized. She did say that, didn't she? So what's right? Marcus looked out the window at the city beyond, at all the people moving through their days, unaware of the small revolution that had started on a plaza that morning. He thought about systems and power, about who got protected and who got dismissed, about the difference one person could make if they refused to look away. "I think maybe right means not stopping after one brave moment," he said quietly. "Maybe it means following through. Maybe it means following through." Lily nodded seriously, as if this confirmed something she'd already decided. And in that moment, Marcus realized his daughter had already understood what had taken him decades to learn. Courage wasn't a single act. It was a practice, a commitment, a way of moving through the world. The video went viral within hours. Multiple bystanders had recorded the confrontation on the plaza, and by early afternoon, clips were circulating across every major social media platform. The footage was damning. Newman's aggressive posture, his dismissive words, the moment he grabbed Delilah's arm, and Marcus stepping forward to intervene. But what really caught fire was the revelation that followed. Someone had captured the moment when Delilah revealed her identity, Newman's face going pale, the collective shock rippling through the crowd. The narrative was irresistible. Billionaire CEO goes undercover, experiences discrimination from her own security team, gets defended by an ordinary single father. By evening, Marcus's phone was ringing constantly. News outlets wanted interviews. Social media accounts he didn't even know existed were tagging him in posts. The local news had already run a story with the headline, "Former Marine protects CEO from her own security guard." He ignored most of it, focusing instead on helping Lily with her homework and making dinner in their small apartment. But the outside world wasn't so easily dismissed. At 7 o'clock, there was a knock at his door. Marcus peered through the peephole and saw a young woman in professional attire, holding a folder. He opened the door cautiously, keeping the chain lock engaged. "Mr. Keller? My name is Zoe Lewis. I'm an attorney with the Civil Rights Defense Coalition. I was hoping I could speak with you for a few minutes." Marcus hesitated. "I'm not looking to sue anyone or make this into something bigger than it was. I'm not here about a lawsuit," Zoe said quickly. "I'm here because what happened today might be evidence of a pattern we've been investigating for months. May I come in? I promise I'll only take a few minutes of your time." Something in her tone was sincere, professional but not predatory. Marcus unhooked the chain and opened the door. 5 minutes. Zoe entered and immediately noticed Lily sitting at the kitchen table, her math homework spread before her. She smiled warmly at the girl before turning back to Marcus. "I'll get straight to the point," Zoe said, opening her folder. "Our organization has been documenting complaints against Foxtech security practices for the past 8 months. We have testimony from 17 individuals who report being harassed, discriminated against, or physically intimidated by security personnel at various Foxtech locations." She laid out several documents on the coffee table. Incident reports with names redacted, photographs showing bruises and injuries, and written statements describing encounters similar to what Marcus had witnessed. "The problem is that most of these people signed non-disclosure agreements after Foxtech offered them settlements. They can't speak publicly about what happened to them. But you can." Marcus looked at the documents, his jaw tightening as he read descriptions of veterans being denied entry to job fairs, families with young ones being aggressively questioned at community events, delivery workers being searched without cause. "What exactly are you asking me to do?" "I want you to make a formal statement about what you witnessed. Not for a lawsuit, but for a federal inquiry we're trying to initiate. The Department of Labor has been investigating Foxtech for other issues related to workplace discrimination. If we can show that the company's security culture is part of a broader pattern of bias, it strengthens the case for comprehensive oversight and reform." Marcus sat down slowly. Ms. Fox seemed genuine about wanting to fix things. She talked about creating an advisory board, doing a complete overhaul. "I'm sure she was genuine," Zoe said. "But corporate promises are easy to make and easy to break once the media attention fades. Legal accountability is different. It creates lasting change because there are consequences for backsliding." "Dad?" Lily's voice came from the kitchen. "Is everything okay?" "Everything's fine, honey." "Finish your homework." Marcus turned back to Zoe. "Let me ask you something. If I make this statement, if I help push for this federal inquiry, does that hurt Ms. Fox? Because from what I saw today, she's trying to be part of the solution." "It might make things uncomfortable for her in the short term," Zoe admitted. "Federal scrutiny isn't pleasant. But if she's genuinely committed to reform, having external oversight actually helps. It gives her leverage to make changes that internal resistance might otherwise block. And it protects future victims by ensuring the company can't just sweep problems under the rug." Marcus was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Finally, he nodded. "I'll make the statement. But I want to be clear about something. I'm not doing this to hurt Ms. Fox. I'm doing it because those 17 people deserve to have their experiences validated, even if they can't speak up themselves." Zoe smiled. "That's exactly why your voice matters, Mr. Keller, because you're not coming from a place of revenge or opportunism. You're coming from a place of principle." After Zoe left, Marcus sat in the dimness of his living room, the folder of documents still spread on the coffee table. Lily emerged from the kitchen and curled up beside him on the couch. "That lady seemed nice," Lily observed. "She did. Are you going to help her too? Like you're helping Ms. Fox?" Marcus pulled his daughter close. "I'm going to try to help make sure what happened today doesn't keep happening to other people, even after everyone stops paying attention." "That's good," Lily said simply. Then, after a pause, "Dad, do you think Mom would have done the same thing you did today? Would she have helped that lady?" Marcus felt emotion swell in his chest. "Your mom would have done it faster than me. She never hesitated when someone needed help. She taught me that looking away is its own kind of harm. I miss her. I miss her too, sweetheart." They sat together in comfortable silence, the weight of the day finally settling. Outside, the city continued its evening rhythm. Unaware that in this small apartment, decisions were being made that would ripple far beyond one confrontation on one morning. The next day brought new developments. Marcus received a call from Director Chun, requesting a formal meeting to give his account of the incident for Foxtech's internal investigation. He agreed, stipulating that Zoe Lewis could accompany him as an observer. The meeting took place in a conference room on the 7th floor, all glass and steel with a view that made Marcus slightly dizzy. Present were Director Chun, the head of HR, a corporate attorney, and surprisingly, Delilah Fox herself. "Mr. Keller, thank you for coming," Chun began. "We want to ensure our investigation is thorough and that we have your complete account of what transpired yesterday morning. For the next hour." Marcus walked them through every detail, how he'd first noticed Newman's aggressive stance, the words exchanged, the physical contact, his decision to intervene. Zoe occasionally interjected to clarify legal points or ensure questions were appropriate. What struck Marcus most was Delilah's silence. She sat at the far end of the table, taking notes, her expression unreadable. Only occasionally did she look up, and when she did, her eyes held an intensity that suggested she was cataloging every word, every implication. When Marcus finished, the corporate attorney cleared his throat. "Mr. Keller, we appreciate your detailed account. The company is taking this matter very seriously. Officer Newman has been terminated as of this morning, and we're conducting a comprehensive review of our security protocols." "Terminated?" Marcus repeated. "I thought he was suspended pending investigation." "The investigation moved quickly," the attorney said. "Given the video evidence and corroborating witness statements, the decision was clear." Zoe leaned forward. What about the other 17 complaints we've documented? Are those being investigated as well? The room went very quiet. Chun and the attorney exchanged glances. Finally, Delilah spoke for the first time. Yes, every complaint, even those that were previously settled and closed, is being reopened and reviewed by an independent third party. We've hired an outside firm that specializes in workplace culture audits. They have complete access to our files and full authority to interview anyone they choose, without company oversight. She looked directly at Marcus. You asked me yesterday what happens now. This is what happens. Full transparency, real accountability, and permanent change. After the meeting, as Marcus and Zoe waited for the elevator, Delilah caught up with them. Mr. Keller, could I speak with you privately for a moment? Zoe glanced at Marcus, who nodded. She stepped aside, giving them space. Delilah's polished CEO demeanor had cracked slightly, showing the exhaustion underneath. I want you to know that I understand you're working with Ms. Lewis on the federal inquiry. I want you to know that I support it. Marcus was surprised. You support a federal investigation into your own company? I support accountability. If my executives or my systems have been protecting bad actors, I need external pressure to root them out completely. Otherwise, they'll wait for the spotlight to fade and then go right back to old patterns. She smiled thinly. I've been a CEO long enough to know that real change often requires someone outside the system forcing the issue. That's a rare perspective, Marcus said. A rare perspective, Marcus said. I didn't build this company to become everything I fought against when I was starting out. If investigating Foxtech publicly is what it takes to save Foxtech's soul, then that's what needs to happen. She handed him another card, different from the first. This is my personal number. Not my assistant's line, mine. If you need anything as this process unfolds, or if you decide you want to join that advisory board, call me directly. Marcus took the card. Miss Fox, can I ask you something? Yesterday on the plaza, when Newman was treating you that way, what was the worst part? Delilah's expression became distant. The worst part was realizing how many people have experienced that same treatment under my company's name. And I was insulated enough by wealth and position to never see it, until I deliberately stripped away those protections. The worst part was my own ignorance. Ignorance you're now correcting, Marcus pointed out. Trying to correct. There's a difference. She straightened, pulling the CEO mask back into place. Thank you again, Mr. Keller, for everything. As Marcus and Zoe rode the elevator down, the lawyer spoke quietly. She's either genuinely committed to change, or she's the best performer I've ever seen. Marcus thought about the vulnerability he'd seen in Delilah's eyes, the weariness in her voice. I think she's genuine. I think she's terrified that she built something that became the very thing she spent her life fighting against. Then let's help her fix it, Zoe said. 2 weeks passed. The story continued to generate attention, though the initial frenzy had calmed to a steady simmer. News outlets moved on to other scandals. But the conversation around corporate accountability, security practices, and workplace discrimination continued in more meaningful spaces, community forums, industry conferences, and increasingly, within Foxtech itself. Marcus had given his formal statement to the Department of Labor investigators. The federal inquiry was officially opened. And slowly, other voices began emerging. People who had signed NDAs started finding legal ways to speak about their experiences without violating their agreements. The pattern Zoe had suspected was now undeniable. On a Thursday afternoon, Marcus received a text from an unknown number. This is Delilah Fox. Are you free tomorrow afternoon? I'd like to invite you and Lily to something. No pressure, just thought you might find it meaningful. He texted back, what kind of something? The response came quickly. The first meeting of the new Community Advisory Board. Your presence would mean a lot, even if you haven't decided about joining. Lily, welcome too. Marcus found himself saying yes before fully thinking it through. The next day, he and Lily arrived at a community center on the south side of Ashford Heights, far from the gleaming towers of the Fox Tech campus. The center was modest, well-worn but clearly loved, with colorful murals painted by local artists and a garden out front tended by volunteers. Inside, a conference room had been set up with a large, circular table. No hierarchy of seating, just chairs arranged in a perfect ring. Already present were about a dozen people, community leaders, activists, former Fox Tech employees, and notably, several of the people who had filed complaints against the company's security practices. Delilah stood near a coffee station, dressed casually in jeans and a simple sweater. She looked more like she had on the plaza that first morning than the polished executive he'd seen in the tower. When she saw Marcus and Lily enter, her face brightened genuinely. "Thank you for coming," she said, shaking Marcus's hand and then kneeling to speak to Lily. "I'm glad you're here too. Sometimes the most important perspectives come from people who see things clearly because they haven't learned to look away yet." Lily smiled shyly. "My dad says you're trying to fix things." "I'm trying. With help from people like your dad and everyone else in this room." As the meeting began, Marcus realized this wasn't a typical corporate advisory board. There were no PowerPoint presentations, no formal agendas imposed from above. Instead, Delilah opened by sharing her own story. Not the sanitized version from her company bio, but the real one. "I grew up in the Riverside neighborhood," she began. And Marcus noted the irony of the name, the part of the city where opportunity didn't come looking for you. "My mother cleaned houses. My father drove a delivery truck. I was the first in my family to go to college, and I only managed that because a teacher saw something in me and helped me navigate the scholarship system." She paused, looking around the circle. "I started Fox Tech because I wanted to prove that someone like me could build something significant. But somewhere along the way, I think I forgot what it felt like to be dismissed, to be judged, to be treated as less than. I forgot until a security guard reminded me 2 weeks ago on my own campus." One of the other attendees, a middle-aged veteran named Anthony White, spoke up. "With respect, Ms. Fox, you got reminded for one morning. Some of us live that reality every day." "You're absolutely right," Delilah said without defensiveness. "And that's why I'm here, why we're all here. I can't fix decades of societal bias, but I can fix how my company contributes to it. And I can't do that without listening to people who've experienced the harm firsthand." For the next 2 hours, people shared their stories. A delivery driver talked about being stopped and searched every time he entered the Fox Tech campus, while white drivers waved through without question. A veteran described being treated like a threat when he disclosed his PTSD during a job interview. A young woman recounted being followed by security through the entire public lobby because her hijab apparently made her suspicious. Lily sat beside Marcus, listening intently. At one point, she tugged his sleeve and whispered, "Dad, these are all stories like what happened to Ms. Fox." "Yes, they are," Marcus whispered back. When it was Marcus's turn to speak, he found himself talking not about the incident on the plaza, but about his wife. About how in her final months she'd been in a wheelchair, and how often people spoke over her to him, as if her disability had somehow diminished her voice or her mind. About how that experience opened his eyes to all the small ways society discounts people based on appearance or assumption. "My wife used to say that dignity isn't something you earn. It's something you're born with. The only question is whether the world around you recognizes it." He looked at Delilah. What happened on that plaza wasn't exceptional. It was just one moment when the world's failure to recognize someone's dignity got caught on camera. The real question is how many moments like that happen when no one's watching. The room was quiet. Then Anthony spoke again. "That's the difference, isn't it? Miss Fox, you have the power to make sure people are watching. to make sure there are consequences when dignity isn't respected. The question is whether you'll use that power beyond this moment, beyond this initial outrage, when it gets hard and expensive and inconvenient. Delilah met his eyes. I understand your skepticism. I've seen enough corporate reform theater to recognize it. But I'm not asking you to trust my intentions. I'm asking you to help build systems that don't require trust. Independent oversight. Transparent reporting. Real consequences with teeth. Make it so that even if I wanted to backslide, I couldn't. An older woman named Chloe Martinez, who ran a nonprofit serving immigrant families, leaned forward. What happens when we disagree with you? When this board says something that hurts your bottom line or your reputation? Then we have a conversation about it. And if the board holds firm, the board wins. Delilah said simply. I'm writing that into the charter. This advisory board will have binding authority over security practices, community engagement protocols, and discrimination complaints. Not advisory in the sense of optional. Advisory in the sense that you advise and the company implements. That's unprecedented, Chloe said. So is a CEO getting assaulted by her own security team, Delilah replied. We're past precedent. We're into necessary. As the meeting wound down, people exchanged contact information and made plans for follow-up sessions. Marcus noticed how Delilah moved through the room, spending time with each person, listening more than she spoke, taking notes on her phone. When most people had left, she approached Marcus and Lily. Can we talk for a minute? Outside in the garden? They walked out into the afternoon sunshine. The garden was simple but beautiful, raised beds full of vegetables and flowers, a small seating area with benches made from reclaimed wood. Lily immediately gravitated toward a butterfly flitting among the marigolds. Delilah sat on one of the benches, and Marcus joined her. For a moment, they just watched Lily chase butterflies, her laughter carrying on the breeze. She's wonderful, Delilah said quietly. She is. She's the reason I get up every morning and try to be better than I was the day before. Can I ask you something personal? Marcus nodded. When your wife got sick, when you knew you were going to lose her, how did you decide what kind of father you wanted to be? How did you choose what to teach Lily about the world? Marcus was quiet, thinking. I decided that I couldn't shield her from pain or injustice. They're part of life. But I could teach her how to face them. How to stay soft in a hard world. How to act when others freeze. He looked at Delilah. Why do you ask? Delilah. Why do you ask? Because I don't have anyone to pass things on to. No family. I poured everything into building Foxtech, and now I'm realizing that the legacy I'm creating might not be what I hoped. Watching you with Lily, seeing how thoughtfully you're raising her, it makes me wonder what I'm building for. Who benefits if I get this right? Everyone who works for your company, Marcus said. Everyone who interacts with it. That's thousands of people whose lives are shaped by the culture you create. That's a pretty significant legacy. Delilah smiled sadly. When you put it that way, it sounds less lonely. It doesn't have to be lonely at all. Legacy isn't just about biology. It's about impact. The lives you touch, the changes you make, the people you empower to do better themselves. That ripples forward just as much as DNA does. They sat in comfortable silence for a while, watching Lily explore the garden. Finally, Marcus spoke again. I've been thinking about your offer. About joining the advisory board. Delilah turned to him, hope and apprehension mixing in her expression. I'll do it, Marcus said. Not because I think I'm particularly qualified, but because I think that's exactly why you need me. You need people who aren't impressed by corporate titles, who won't soften their feedback to preserve access. And honestly, I think I need it too. I need to believe that standing up that morning led to something lasting, not just a news cycle. Delilah's smile was genuine and relieved. Thank you. You have no idea what this means. I think I do, Marcus said. It means accountability. It means not letting good intentions drift into comfortable inaction. It means my daughter gets to see that courage isn't one moment, it's a practice. As they walked back inside to collect their things, Lily ran up, her hands cupped around something. Look what I found. She opened her hands to reveal a smooth river stone, gray with a white stripe running through it. It was in the garden. Can I keep it? That's up to Ms. Fox, Marcus said. It's her event space. Delilah knelt down. I think you should definitely keep it. And you know what? That white stripe running through the gray reminds me of something important. What? Lily asked. That even in difficult things, in hard places, there's always a line of light running through. You just have to look for it. Lily considered this seriously, then nodded. Like how you were being treated bad. But then my dad helped, and now you're fixing things? Exactly like that, Delilah said softly. As they left the community center, Marcus felt something shift inside him. The past 2 weeks had been disorienting, full of attention and pressure he hadn't sought. But this felt right. Not the spotlight, but the work. Not the recognition, but the opportunity to turn one moment of courage into sustained change. Lily slipped her hand into his as they walked to the car. Dad, I like Miss Fox. I think she's trying really hard to be good. I think you're right, sweetheart. And I think Mom would like her too. Marcus felt his throat tighten. Yeah, I think she would. That evening, as Marcus tucked Lily into bed, she held up the river stone, examining the white stripe in the lamplight. Dad, do you think we're the white stripe? What do you mean? Like Ms. Fox said. The light in the hard stuff. When you helped her, you were the light. And now she's trying to be light for other people. So maybe we all take turns being the stripe. Marcus kissed her forehead, marveling at the wisdom that could emerge from a 9-year-old mind. I think that's exactly right. We all take turns being the light for each other. As he closed her door and returned to the living room, his phone buzzed with a text from Delilah. Thank you again for today. And for saying yes. Real change starts now. Marcus typed back, looking forward to the work. And for the first time since that morning on the plaza, he felt certain that he was exactly where he needed to be. Doing exactly what he was meant to do, not for recognition or reward, but because some moments demand follow-through. And some courage requires commitment that outlasts the cameras. The backlash came swiftly and predictably. Within a month of the advisory board's formation, internal resistance at Fox Tech began to surface. Senior executives who had spent years building the security protocols, now being dismantled, pushed back hard. Leaked emails appeared in business journals questioning whether Delilah was overreacting to a single incident and destroying company culture to appease activists. Marcus received his first taste of this resistance during the second advisory board meeting. The head of corporate security, a man named Vincent Shaw, who had somehow survived the initial purge, presented a watered-down version of the reforms the board had requested. These modifications maintain security integrity while addressing community concerns, Shaw explained, clicking through a presentation that used a lot of corporate language to say very little. Anthony White, the veteran who had spoken so directly at the first meeting, cut through the rhetoric immediately. This is the same system with different words. You're still giving security officers unchecked discretion about who looks suspicious. Shaw's smile was patronizing. With respect, Mr. White, security operations require professional judgment. We can't handcuff our officers with rigid protocols that prevent them from responding to legitimate threats. Newman thought Ms. Fox was a legitimate threat, Marcus said quietly. Your professional judgment failed spectacularly. The room temperature dropped several degrees. Shaw's expression hardened. Mr. Keller, I understand you had one experience with our security team. But with all due respect, You don't understand the complexities of protecting a multi-billion-dollar technology campus. I understand that 17 people filed complaints before that one experience, Marcus replied. His voice still calm but carrying an edge now. I understand that every one of those complaints was buried. And I understand that you were the director who oversaw that burial. Delilah, who had been silent until now, spoke up. Vincent, the board's recommendations aren't optional. They're requirements. If you can't implement them as written, I need to know that now. Shaw's jaw tightened. Miss Fox, I've served this company for 15 years. I've kept our people safe, our assets secure. I won't apologize for taking security seriously. No one's asking you to apologize for security, Delilah said. We're asking you to apologize for discrimination. There's a difference. The meeting ended tensely. As people filed out, Marcus noticed Lily sitting in the corner where she'd been drawing quietly throughout the session. She looked up at him with concerned eyes. Dad, that man was angry. Yes, he was. Is he going to make trouble? Marcus knelt beside her. Maybe, but that's okay. Change always makes some people uncomfortable, especially people who benefited from how things were. 2 weeks later, Shaw resigned, but not quietly. He gave an interview to a business news network, claiming that Foxtech was sacrificing security for political correctness and that the advisory board was a group of activists with no understanding of corporate realities. The interview sparked a new wave of attention, this time more critical. Think pieces appeared questioning whether Delilah was destroying shareholder value to manage her image. Conservative commentators held up Shaw as a victim of woke corporate culture. The narrative was shifting. From heroic CEO reforms company to CEO caves to pressure and endangers employees, Marcus watched it unfold with a mixture of frustration and resignation. He'd seen this pattern before, the way the initial clarity of right and wrong got muddied by competing interests and tribal allegiances. Truth became just another opinion to be debated on cable news. Then the death threats started. They came via email and social media, directed at board members who were most vocal about reforms. Anthony received messages calling him a race baiter. Chloe was told to go back to her country, despite being third-generation American. And Marcus received several messages that made specific reference to Lily, suggesting that bad things happened to people who didn't mind their own business. He reported them to police, but also knew that online threats rarely resulted in real action. What worried him more was the chilling effect. At the next board meeting, attendance was noticeably lighter. 2 members sent regrets, citing unforeseen scheduling conflicts. Delilah addressed it directly. I know some of you have received threats. I have too. The company is hiring personal security for any board member who wants it, and we're working with law enforcement. But I understand if anyone wants to step back. This has become more dangerous than any of us anticipated. No one spoke for a moment. Then Lily, who had been sitting quietly beside Marcus, raised her hand like she was in school. Delilah smiled gently. Yes, Lily? My dad says that bullies want you to be scared so you'll stop. And if you stop, they win. Are we going to let them win? The room was silent. Then Anthony laughed, a real genuine laugh that broke the tension. Out of the mouths of babes. The kid's right. We stop now, we prove that threats work. Chloe nodded. My parents came to this country with nothing. They faced real danger, not keyboard warriors. I'm not backing down. One by one, the board members committed to continuing. Marcus felt a swell of pride, not in himself, but in this group of ordinary people who were choosing courage when it would have been so much easier to walk away. As the meeting concluded, Delilah pulled Marcus aside. Your daughter is remarkable, but I'm worried about her safety. About both of your safety. We'll be careful, Marcus said. I'm assigning you a security detail. That seems excessive. Newman is out there somewhere, angry and probably feeling victimized. Shaw is actively working against us. And there are people who see this whole effort as some kind of culture war they need to fight. Delilah's voice was firm. I won't have you or Lily hurt because you helped me. Non-negotiable. Marcus wanted to argue, but looking at Lily, he nodded. Okay, the breakthrough came from an unexpected source. A junior IT administrator at Foxtech, a young woman named Emma Chun, reached out to Zoe Lewis with a flash drive containing 3 years of deleted security reports. Shaw had ordered them purged from the official system, but Emma had maintained backup archives as part of her job. The documents were devastating. They showed a systematic pattern of discriminatory enforcement. People of color stopped at 5 times the rate of white visitors. Veterans with disclosed disabilities flagged as potential threats. Women in casual clothing questioned about their purpose, while men in similar attire waved through without comment. More damning were the internal emails Emma had also preserved. Shaw's messages to his team included phrases like, "Trust your gut about who belongs," "Here," and "better to be overly cautious with certain demographics." 1. Email explicitly praised Newman for being aggressive in protecting campus culture. Zoe brought the evidence to the Department of Labor investigators, who immediately expanded their inquiry. Within days, federal subpoenas were issued for Foxtech's complete security records, personnel files, and executive communications. The news broke on a Tuesday morning. By noon, Foxtech stock had dropped 8%. By evening, the board of directors had called an emergency meeting. Delilah was about to face the real test of her commitment to reform. Marcus watched the news coverage from his apartment, Lily beside him doing homework. His phone rang. It was Delilah. "I need to ask you something," she said without preamble. Her voice was strained, exhausted. "The board is pushing me to settle with the dole, make this go away quietly with a fine and some policy updates. They're saying the stock price can't take prolonged federal scrutiny. That employees are nervous about their jobs. What do you want to do?" Marcus asked. "I want to fight. I want full transparency, full accountability, even if it's painful. But I'm being told that's selfish, that I'm prioritizing my conscience over the livelihoods of thousands of employees who had nothing to do with security practices." Marcus was quiet for a moment. "Can I tell you what my wife used to say?" "Please." "She used to say that there's a difference between protecting people and protecting a system. People are resilient. They can handle truth and change and even short-term hardship if it leads to something better. But systems resist change because change threatens their existence. The question is always, are you serving people or serving a system?" Delilah let out a long breath. "Your wife was wise." "She was. So what are you going to do?" "I'm going to tell the board that we cooperate fully with the federal inquiry. That we don't settle to make this go away. That we face whatever consequences come and use them to build something better." A pause. "And if they fire me for it, at least I'll be able to look at myself in the mirror." "They won't fire you," Marcus said. "You're the founder. You're the face of the company. And despite what the stock price says today, you're doing what will matter in 5 years. I hope you're right." The board meeting lasted 7 hours. When it ended, Delilah held a press conference. She stood at a podium, her executive team visible behind her, looking varying degrees of supportive and uncomfortable. "Foxtech will cooperate fully and transparently with the Department of Labor investigation," she announced, her voice steady. "We will not seek to settle these allegations quietly. We will face them openly because our employees, our community, and our values demand nothing less." She paused, looking directly into the cameras. "I founded this company with a belief that technology could be a force for democratizing opportunity. But I lost sight of the fact that opportunity means nothing if people don't feel safe. respected, and valued when they walk through our doors. The cost of this inquiry, financial and reputational, is the price we pay for losing our way. And it's a price worth paying if it helps us find our way back. The questions from reporters were sharp, skeptical. How much would this cost? Was she prepared to resign if the board demanded it? Was this just damage control? But Delilah didn't waver. And watching from home, Marcus felt something shift. This wasn't a CEO managing a crisis. This was a leader taking responsibility. The next day, something unexpected happened. Foxtech employees began posting messages of support for Delilah's decision on social media. Not all of them, but enough to matter. Engineers, designers, mid-level managers, they shared their own experiences with security overreach and expressed relief that someone was finally addressing it. A hashtag emerged. #TechWithDignity. It spread beyond Foxtech, with employees from other technology companies sharing similar stories of security practices that prioritized property over people, control over respect. Within a week, 3 other major tech companies announced reviews of their own security protocols. The conversation had expanded beyond one company, one incident. It had become a movement. Marcus received a text from Delilah. "We might actually be changing something real. Thank you for not letting me take the easy path." He texted back, "You didn't need me for that. You just needed to remember who you were before you became who you are." That evening, as Marcus tucked Lily into bed, she asked him a question that had clearly been percolating for days. "Dad, when you're brave once, does it make it easier to be brave again?" Marcus thought about it carefully. "I think it works both ways. Being brave once shows you that you can do it, which makes the next time less scary. But it also shows you what courage costs, which makes the next time harder because you know what you're signing up for. So which is it? Easier or harder?" "Both," Marcus said. "And that's okay. Courage doesn't mean not being scared. It means being scared and doing it anyway." Lily nodded, satisfied with this answer. As Marcus turned out her light, she said one more thing. "Miss Fox is being brave again, isn't she? Even though she knows what it costs." "Yes, she is." "Good. I'm glad we helped her remember how." The Department of Labor investigation concluded after 3 months. The findings were released on a gray November morning, delivered in a 247-page report that laid bare every systematic failure in Foxtech security operations. The report confirmed what Emma's documents had suggested. Discrimination wasn't an aberration, but a feature, built into training materials that taught guards to assess threat based on appearance, embedded in performance metrics that rewarded proactive interdiction without defining what that meant, resulting in officers like Newman who genuinely believed they were doing their jobs correctly when they harassed, intimidated, and excluded. The DOL's recommendations were sweeping: mandatory retraining for all security personnel, independent oversight of all complaints, regular audits by external civil rights organizations, and substantial fines totaling $4.7 million to be paid to a fund for victims of workplace discrimination. But there was one more finding that caught everyone's attention. The report noted that despite the systematic failures, Foxtech's response to being exposed had been exemplary and could serve as a model for corporate accountability. The advisory board structure, the commitment to transparency, and Delilah's refusal to settle quietly were all highlighted as best practices. A press conference was scheduled for that afternoon. Delilah invited Marcus and several other board members to stand with her. This time, Marcus brought Lily without hesitation. She deserved to see how courage paid off. The conference room was packed with reporters, cameras, and representatives from civil rights organizations. Delilah took the podium, the Dole report visible on the table beside her. "Today's report is painful to read, but necessary to understand," she began. It confirms that Foxtec's security practices cause real harm to real people. Some of those people are in this room. Others have chosen to remain private, which is their right. But all of them deserve acknowledgement and apology. She turned to face the section where victims and their representatives sat. I'm sorry. As CEO and founder, the responsibility for creating a culture where discrimination flourished is mine. I failed you, and I'm committed to ensuring Foxtec never fails anyone this way again. Then she did something no one expected. She invited Anthony White, the veteran who had been so direct in advisory board meetings, to speak. Anthony approached the podium, his military bearing evident despite civilian clothes. I'm here because I was one of the 17. 3 years ago, I came to a Foxtec job fair hoping to find work that would challenge me and help me transition from military service. Instead, I was profiled, searched, and humiliated in front of dozens of people. I filed a complaint that was buried. I signed an NDA because I needed the settlement money more than I needed justice. He paused, his voice thick with emotion. But then Ms. Fox experienced what I experienced. And instead of using her power to bury it like my complaint was buried, she used her power to excavate all the other buried stories. That doesn't erase what happened to me, but it means my humiliation led to something that might spare others. And that matters. Other victims spoke, each story adding weight and texture to the dry findings of the federal report. A delivery driver. A job applicant. A woman attending a public event with her young family. The pattern was undeniable, and so was the harm. When Marcus was asked to speak, he kept it brief. I'm not special. I'm just someone who was in the right place at the right time and made a choice that anyone should make, to stand between power being abused and a person being harmed. What makes this story special isn't me, it's what happened next. A CEO who chose accountability over image management. A company that chose to face its failures rather than hide them. That's the real story. The questions from reporters were tough but fair. Yes, the fines were significant. Yes, the stock price had taken a hit. Yes, some executives had left rather than participate in reforms. But yes, fundamental change was happening. And yes, it was already spreading beyond Foxtec to the broader tech industry. After the conference, as people filtered out, Newman appeared at the back of the room. Marcus spotted him immediately, his body tensing instinctively. But Newman wasn't there to cause trouble. He looked diminished, his former swagger replaced by something that might have been shame. He approached Delilah hesitantly. Miss Fox, I know I have no right to speak to you, but I wanted to say something. Security guards moved closer, but Delilah raised a hand. It's okay. What did you want to say, Mr. Newman? I was wrong. About everything. I thought I was doing my job, protecting the company, but I was just protecting my own biases. The training, the culture, it taught me that certain people were threats. And I believed it because it was easier than questioning it. He looked down. I'm sorry. To you, to everyone I hurt. I know that's not enough, but it's all I have. The room was silent. Delilah studied him for a long moment. Thank you for saying that. Are you getting help? Therapy counseling. Newman nodded. Court ordered as part of my probation. But I'm going beyond what's required, because I need to understand how I became someone who could do what I did. Good, that's important work. Delilah's voice softened slightly. What you did was wrong, and there are consequences you need to face. But if you're genuinely working to change, that matters too. Accountability isn't just about punishment. It's about growth. Newman nodded, tears visible in his eyes, and left quietly. Marcus watched the exchange with mixed feelings. Part of him would never forget the aggression, the slur, the violence. But another part recognized the courage it took for Newman to show up and take responsibility. As the room emptied, Lily tugged on Marcus's sleeve. Dad, that was the bad man from before. Yes, it was. He said he was sorry. He did. Do you believe him? Marcus knelt down. I believe he wants to be better. Whether he actually becomes better, that's something only time will tell. But I'm glad he's trying. Me too, Lily said. Because Mom always said people can change if they really want to. 6 months after the Plaza confrontation, Foxtech unveiled the Marcus Keller Center for Dignity and Inclusion. Marcus had tried to talk Delilah out of naming it after him, but she'd insisted. This isn't about ego, she'd said. It's about reminder. Every person who walks into this building should remember that change started because one person refused to look away. The center occupied the ground floor of what had been the North Tower, the very building where Delilah had been turned away. Now it housed training facilities for security personnel, community meeting spaces, and offices for the advisory board that had grown to include representatives from a dozen community organizations. The opening ceremony was intimate. Not a corporate spectacle, but a community gathering. Local families, veterans groups, civil rights advocates, and Foxtech employees mingled in the bright, open space. The walls featured art created by local students, including a piece by Lily, a painting of a plaza with people of all different appearances standing together under a bright sun. Marcus stood near the entrance with Lily, both of them dressed up for the occasion but still recognizably themselves. Delilah approached, accompanied by an older woman Marcus didn't recognize. Marcus, Lily, I want you to meet someone, Delilah said. This is Dr. Sarah Chun, Anthony White's therapist. She's agreed to lead our new counseling initiative for employees and community members dealing with discrimination trauma. Dr. Chun shook Marcus's hand warmly. Mr. Keller, your willingness to intervene has had ripple effects you may not even realize. Anthony's healing accelerated significantly once he was able to speak openly about his experience. Silence perpetuates harm, but acknowledgement begins healing. I'm glad he's doing better, Marcus said sincerely. As Dr. Chun moved on to greet other guests, Delilah turned to Marcus. I have something for you. She handed him a framed photograph, the moment on the plaza when he'd stepped between her and Newman, captured by one of the many phones recording that morning. I don't need a reminder, Marcus said gently. It's not for you. It's for the center. I want it on the wall where people check in, with a plaque that says, Courage is seeing injustice and refusing to be a bystander. Your face will remind people that ordinary citizens have extraordinary power when they choose to use it. Marcus studied the photograph, seeing himself frozen in that moment of decision. I still don't think I did anything special. That's exactly what makes it special, Delilah replied. You think what you did was normal, what everyone should do. And you're right. But until more people believe that, people like you are heroes whether you want to be or not. Lily tugged on Delilah's sleeve. Miss Fox, can I show you my painting? I would love to see it. As they walked toward Lily's artwork, Marcus noticed Anthony White standing near the community board, reading announcements about support groups and resources. Anthony saw him and walked over. This is something, isn't it? Anthony said, gesturing at the space. 6 months ago, I couldn't even talk about what happened to me. Now there's a whole center dedicated to making sure it doesn't happen to others. How are you doing? Marcus asked. Better. Therapy helps. And being part of the advisory board, having my voice actually matter, that helps too. Anthony smiled. My daughter asked me last week if I was a hero. I told her no, but I was learning to be brave. She said that's the same thing. Smart kid. Must run in the family. Your Lily asked me at the last board meeting if I was proud of myself. 9 years old, and she cuts right to the heart of things. I told her I was working on it. Are you? Proud of yourself? Anthony considered. Getting there. I'm learning that healing isn't linear, but it is possible. And places like this, they make it possible for more people. As the ceremony began, Delilah took the small stage. Her remarks were brief and heartfelt, focusing not on corporate achievement, but on community partnership. She announced that Foxtech would be funding similar dignity centers in 3 other cities, where the company had major campuses, each designed in collaboration with local communities. Then she invited Marcus to say a few words. He hadn't prepared a speech, but as he looked out at the assembled faces, the words came naturally. My wife used to tell our daughter that the world gets better when people choose to see each other's humanity first, everything else second. Not their job title, not their bank account, not what they're wearing or how they look, their humanity. That morning on the plaza, I saw someone's humanity being denied. And I couldn't look away because my daughter was watching, and I needed her to know that we don't look away. He paused, finding Lily in the crowd. She gave him a thumbs up. But here's what I've learned in these past months. Courage isn't one moment. It's 1,000 small choices to keep showing up, to keep speaking up, to keep believing that change is possible even when it's hard and slow and frustrating. Miss Fox has shown that courage. The advisory board has shown it. And every person who shared their painful story so others might be spared has shown it. This center isn't about one moment or one person. It's about all of us choosing, again and again, to be the kind of people who don't look away. The applause was warm and genuine. As Marcus stepped down, Lily ran up and hugged him tightly. You did good, Dad. We did good, sweetheart. All of us together. Later, as the gathering wound down, Marcus found himself standing in front of Lily's painting with Delilah beside him. What do you think happens next? Delilah asked. Not just for the company, but for all of this. Does it last? Marcus thought carefully before answering. I think it lasts as long as we keep choosing it. Change isn't something you achieve and then you're done. It's something you practice every day in every interaction. Some days you'll do it well. Some days you'll fail. But as long as you keep recommitting to it, it lasts. That's both encouraging and exhausting. Delilah said with a small laugh. Welcome to being human. They stood in comfortable silence, watching people move through the space, connecting, talking, building the relationships that would sustain this work long after the headlines faded. Lily appeared beside them, holding something in her hand. It was the river stone she'd found in the community center garden months ago, the one with the white stripe running through the gray. I want to put this somewhere in the center, she announced, to remind people about the light and the hard stuff. Delilah knelt down. Where should we put it? Knelt down. Where should we put it? Lily looked around thoughtfully, then pointed to the welcome desk. Right there, where everyone comes in. So it's the first thing they see. Perfect, Delilah said. Together, they walked to the desk and placed the stone prominently on the counter dot as the evening ended and people began to leave. Marcus and Lily walked out into the cool night air. The plaza where everything had begun was quiet now, transformed from a place of confrontation into a place of possibility. Dad, Lily said as they walked toward their car, do you think Mom knows about all this? About the center and the changes and everything? Marcus looked up at the stars emerging in the darkening sky. I think if love continues after someone's gone, then awareness does too. So yes, I think she knows. And I think she's proud of both of us. I'm proud of us too, Lily said simply. They drove home through the city they'd helped change in small but significant ways. 2 ordinary people who had learned that courage compounded. That one moment of bravery could echo forward into lasting impact. If you were willing to do the harder work of following through, the plaza would remain. The center would serve thousands. The policies would protect countless people who would never know their names. And somewhere, in homes and offices and hearts across the city and beyond, the simple truth they demonstrated would continue to ripple outward, that dignity isn't negotiable, that courage is contagious, and that the world changes when ordinary people decide that looking away is no longer an option. Up next, you've got 2 more standout stories right on your screen. If this one hit the mark, you won't want to pass these up. Just click and check them out. And don't forget to subscribe and turn on the notification bell so you don't miss any upload from us.